Good afternoon. I'm going to be reading you one of my short stories which I wrote 30 years ago. All I'm going to say is think of Bridgerton, and this is what I wrote 30 years ago. You don't have to look at me, you can just listen to it and hopefully you'll enjoy. Rose in bloom. The York stone wall spanned for more than a mile. Rose sat in the carriage and viewed every inch. She was excited as she recognised all the nooks and crannies. She was coming home at long last. She was coming home. It had hardly changed over the years, the winding wall holding in her memories. The carriage jostled to and fro, not exactly a comfortable journey, but Rose was coming home. That was all what mattered. Jack and Mary were overjoyed by the new pregnancy. They were both apprehensive, but they wanted this baby so much. Mary had already lost 3 babies in their early months. She'd had a stillbirth birth also. This would be the last time for Mary. She would try this last time for Jack. She could not bear the thought of any more fatalities. Jack loved her so much. He needed this child so much. This time they would be lucky. The baby was born. It was a girl. Mary was very weak, but overjoyed. She wanted her to be called Rose. Mary sighed with relief as she drifted off to sleep. Unfortunately, she never woke up. The birth had been very difficult, and Mary had died of exhaustion. Jack could not believe it. He was devastated. In fact, he was heartbroken. Mary's father came to stay. He came to give moral support and help with his new granddaughter. Jack could not touch Rose. He blamed her for his Mary's death. He hired a nanny so the baby could be kept away from him as far as possible. She grew strong and healthy. Jack wished it was her who had died, not his Mary. As Rose grew older, she became attached to her grandfather. He loved her very much. But Jack still kept his distance. He did not want to be bothered with the child. He wouldn't even look at her. She was the image of her mother. It was uncanny. When Rose was 8, she excitedly ran through the house. She bumped into a table and broke a plate. Jack went wild. He took his leather belt off and beat her. He repeatedly struck her until she bled. The strap had ripped into her flesh. If her grandfather had not stopped him, he would probably have killed her. Jack could not control his hate for her. Rose wanted to hate him. As the years passed, Rose became more and more distant from her father. Her grandfather felt like a safety ledge between the rift. He knew he was getting old and would not live forever. He wanted to protect Rose when he was gone. This would be no safe haven when he'd be dead and gone. Grandfather discussed Rose being sent to finishing school. Jack agreed instantly. He did not mind the expense. This would be a burden off his shoulders. He would not have to suffer the child any longer. They chose a suitable establishment and prepared for Rose's departure. Grandfather explained to Rose about her trip. She did not understand. Her father did not utter a word. Rose looked up at her father. He avoided her eyes and looked away. She wanted him to love her, not to be sent away. But it was for the best, Grandfather said. As the carriage arrived to take her, Jack retreated to the study. Grandfather gave her a big hug and kissed her goodbye. She was very emotional as the tears rolled down her cheeks. As the carriage went down the lane, she was scared, so scared. She waved to her grandfather until the winding wall blocked her view. He stood waving until she was out of sight. He felt awful for sending her away, but he knew it had to be. It really was for the best. Deep down, Rose felt she would never see her grandfather again. She wondered why her father hated her so much. She must have been such an awful bad child. Then she fell asleep. The journey to London was long and uncomfortable. The school was not what she expected. It was very difficult for Rose to fit in. She had never known anyone other than her father and her grandfather. The other girls did not accept her as she had not got the correct breeding. She became more and more isolated. It was like a prison. She spent most of the day learning Latin and early evenings spent with needlework. She was not a good scholar. She had no friends, and even the teachers pitied her. She became withdrawn and only lived for her grandfather's letters. She wrote back immediately to him. She lied in her letters of the wonderful time she was having. She told him of all the friends she made. She sent her love to them both and hoped to see them very soon. He also finished his letters with a lie, "With love from your father." It was his way of compensating for Jack's indifference. The years went by, nothing changing for Rose except adolescence. She just existed there like part of the furniture. She was determined to make the most of her learning. She became very learned. This had helped her to write such wonderful letters to her grandfather. He was very proud. He knew it had been for the best sending her there. The letters abruptly stopped from grandfather. Rose continued to write. She hoped her father would read her letters to her ailing grandfather. She secretly hoped her father would correspond with her, but she knew it was too much to hope for. Months went by, no letters. Then she heard of her grandfather's death. She was heartbroken, the only person on this earth to bestow any love or kindness upon her. She loved him so much, it was like part of her had died with him. She cried herself to sleep for weeks. She wept in silence. She wept for her grandfather. She wept for her father, and she wept for herself. Jack did not contact Rose personally, but through a solicitor. The letter informed her of the death and urged her to return immediately. Her days at the school were coming to an end. She was pleased, in fact overjoyed. She would be allowed to come home. She put her feelings for her father aside. In her mind she had erased the bad memories of her life at the manor. She had made herself forget the unhappy childhood. All she wanted was to return home. All she lived for was her return. It would be different now, wouldn't it? The feelings welled in the back of her mind. As the carriage jostled down the drive, Rose stared towards the manor. He was there. He was standing there waiting for her. She climbed out of the carriage and ran towards him. He embraced her. She felt the warmth as he held her close. This was like a dream come true. She was so happy. They entered the manor arm in arm. She scanned the interior. It was as she remembered. The old grandfather clock, the pendulum throbbing in its cabinet, the old hat stand in the corner. There they were, her favourite hats of grandfather. He had let her try them on. She remembered it so well. She was home. Jack took her in the dining room. She felt very apprehensive. She had never been allowed in there before. Previously, she had to eat with the servants. She knew it would be better now. She was right. Her father showed her to a seat next to him. There were flowers adorning the table. The enormous Regency table dressed for guests. It was like a dream. The two of them sat. Jack at the end of the table, Rose by his side. She felt this was a real honour. A servant came in and served the food. Rose did not recognise her. In fact, all the servants looked unfamiliar, but it had been a long, long time. The food was delicious, the best she had ever tasted. She was so happy to be at home. Rose looked at her father. He smiled. He did not take his eyes off her beauty. He beckoned her towards him and kissed her. Rose was shocked. He had kissed her fully on the lips, not the way a father would kiss his daughter. He said, my Mary, you have come back to me." Rose panicked. "I'm not your Mary, I'm your Rose. I'm your daughter Rose." He laughed in a happy way and called in the staff. He introduced the servants to his new bride Mary. He explained she was very young and nervous and to be very kind to her. She could not raise a sound. She was absolutely dumbfounded with shock. He took Rose upstairs to his bedroom. This was turning into a nightmare. She cried to him. Jack was not listening. He had waited a long time for his Mary. She was back. He knew if he waited long enough she would return. His prayers had been answered. Rose lay on the bed sobbing. She screamed as Jack lay beside her. Nobody heard her cries. Jack was happy again. He would never let his Mary go again. Not ever. He loved her too much. As he put his lips on Rose's, her mind raced in terror. She wanted to scream. Her body lunged away from him in terror. Then she fainted. When she came to, he was still by her side. His eyes were full of tears. He was caressing her. He was concerned for her. He did not want to hurt his Mary. He laid some flowers by her head. He kissed her gently. What was Rose going to do? He loved Mary so much. He loved her as Mary. Would it be wrong for her to be Mary? Rose had never felt love before. In fact, she felt happier than ever before. Well, who is Rose anyway? Mary now lives on inside her. If it means her father will love her, she will be Mary. So, good night, sweet Rose. Good morning, Mary. Hope you enjoyed listening to my little story there. I wrote that 30 years ago, before all the Bridgerton, etc. So just put your mind into the Bridgerton era, and then hopefully you'll enjoy my little story better. Thanks for listening, Sally.